In this tutorial, I wanted to talk a little bit about tension gauges. Now, it's one of those things that if you are knitting a pattern or if you're knitting something, especially if it's a garment that has to fit someone, you want to make sure that you are knitting to the right tension so that when you go to put on the jumper, the cardigan, the baby clothes, whatever it is, that it actually fits you, because you want to make sure that you're knitting to the right size specifications. So to be able to check that, before you knit anything, always do a little tension swatch to see if your tension matches the pattern or if it matches what it says on the ball of yarn if you're just working from something that, if you're designing your own stuff. So, for example, in this particular yarn, it says in 10 by 10 centimeters square, there should be 14 stitches by 19 rows using a 6.5 millimeter needle. So to put this to the test, I've knit two swatches here, one with 6.5 millimeter needles and one with 5 millimeter needles to see how they measure up. So with this, you can instantly see that it's the same yarn. The only difference between these two swatches is one was with 6.5 millimeter needles and one was with 5 millimeter needles. So you can see how much tighter the tension is on this one compared to this one. And to be able to count your stitches, you can see the V's in our stockinette pattern here. So I'm going to count them across. So we've got V here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 stitches with the 6.5 millimeter needles. So in theory, that should measure 10 centimeters across. So right here, my tension swatch is 11 centimeters. So that means that my tension when I'm knitting is slightly too loose for the 6.5 millimeter needles to match the tension gauge. So what I would do with that was go down a knitting needle size. So hence why I've done a tension swatch with 5 millimeter needles. I've done 14 stitches again. So now I just want to see whether those stitches measure 10 centimeters, which they do. So as you can see, clearly the tension that I knit at is slightly looser than what the gauge for the yarn would be. So it would mean that my tension square here needed to be done with 5 millimeter needles rather than 6.5 millimeter needles. That's why a tension swatch is so important, because everybody knits so differently. Like if I had made a jumper in this tension, it would have been way too big. Whereas now knowing that if I use 5 millimeter needles, that is going to match the tension of the project. With the 6.5 millimeter needles, I was working basically at 10% bigger than what the tension actually called for. So it's really important to check your tension before you go to make something, especially if it's something that is going to be worn. But then we also have to make sure the length is going to be right with the rows. So similar to how we would count the stitches across with the V's, you can see the V's here. Each one will represent a row. So you can count one. You can count one side of the legs is how I like to do it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So there's 20 on here because it's always easier to knit even rows. So now we're going to see if that measures 10 centimeters or not. Okay, so here we go. Note, again, this one is actually works out to be about 15% bigger than it should be. So clearly my 6.5 millimeter needles is being knit too loose. So with the 5 millimeter needles, let's see if that measures 10 centimeters like it's supposed to. So yes, so with the 5 millimeter needles, I was able to match the tension that it calls for on the belly band of the yarn. 14 stitches by 19 rows on 6.5 millimeter needles. So that goes to show that I tend to knit quite loosely. So in order to match that, I had to size down on my needles, which just reiterates how important it is to do a tension swatch so that when you're making things, they turn out the size that you actually had planned. Because it's not just about the sizing. Patterns also specify how many balls of yarn and how much meterage and yardage you need for a project. And if you use way more yarn, it means you might run out halfway through the project. So it's really important. Although it's tedious and it can be annoying to do these tension swatches, it is important to do it to make sure that you get the right fit for your garments. And also, you can keep them and at the end of the year, sew it together like a little patchwork blanket. It's always good fun to have all of these little swatches. I mean, I like it anyway. or they make good dishcloths. Whatever you like, really. Thank you for watching this video. Now, don't forget to subscribe to Let's Get Knitting for more tutorials of knit and crochet, and of course, some extras from Game of War.